So how many of you guys recover? Anybody? Are we recovered right now? 80% of us recover? Or you're recovered 80%?
I'm recovered 80%.
How do you know?
I feel like I have a good sense of my body by this point.
Got a nice gauge internally?
Yeah,
How did you get that gauge?
good question.
And the answer is?
All kinds of stuff, I would suppose.
I'm very inquisitive about this stuff because it's important to ask these questions, because as an industry, we're not really cohesive. And in the medical field, everyone kind of just stays in their own lane. And when it comes to the human body, if you guys start picking, instead of picking a piece at a time and you start putting the pieces of the puzzle together, you'll realize that everything connects and you can really manipulate any situation and make whatever patient, client you're working with better in that moment, right where they are at that time. So I always talk about meeting people where they are. It's so important. Don't just cookie cutter approach. Don't just take the same thing you're seeing on Instagram. It's important to know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and understand the physiology behind what you're doing. So a little bit about me, I just like talking about myself. It's important because I've really gone hard when it comes to diving into research, diving into knowledge, diving into things that I don't like. I know psychologically the human body likes to get lazy, it likes to feel comfortable, and it likes to feel safe. So when I feel myself getting comfortable, I always throw myself in random extreme situations and I see how I figure it out. And every time you get more and more resilient and you just keep going. So this is important. Whatever you're afraid of, you're like, oh, wow, that case over there is really, scary for me and I don't want to work with that person because I don't know if I can help them. Well, what about that is scary? Because as human beings, we can break down tasks and we can learn new skills by taking it one step at a time. So don't let fear control your life. Make sure you're diving into different things. Even if you don't know things, shadow people, ask questions, because this is going to make you better as a trainer, as a practitioner, as a coach. So we're going to learn about recovery tools. It's basically understanding the physiology behind recovery. Once we explain this, you're going to see that physiology is actually unbelievable. And these modalities that we're all like, oh, did I do the Normatec? Did I do this? Did I do that? People don't even know where they are baseline as far as their blood. So how are you making recommendations on anything else? And I tell people that. So you don't have to have all the answers. And that's also very common. It's common for us to think that we need to know everything because we're kind of shunned as experts in the field because Big Pharma doesn't want us to realize our full potential. So you can really help people. So we're going to talk about the physiology behind recovery. I'm going to give you guys understanding of what you need to understand, where you can get these outlets from, connecting with a network where you're actually working with good people that have a quality product. And it's not about sales. I know we don't like to talk about sales and we feel guilty taking any kind of commission whatsoever, but it's important to recognize if you put your name on something and you work with a company that's a quality company, then you should put your name on that. You should get a commission because you did the research to put the time in to value that company based on what information you found through the data. So, companies get bought out and ingredients change, things change, but it's important to always look at what these companies are doing that you're backing, but always get a commission because it's important. So once you understand the physiology behind it, you'll be able to pick which products are right for you. And I'm basically arming you guys with a toolbox of tools, and you're gonna know which ones you need to pick and why. It's not just, shooting in the dark. People are gonna think that you're actually psychic, and it's not being psychic, it's just having the information. So information is so important. I love this. You can't foam roll your way out of genetic mutations, systemic toxicity, or neurological overload. So did you know that you cannot heal, you cannot repair in a sympathetic state? So you have to be in a parasympathetic dominant state. So if you're never in a parasympathetic state, when do you ever heal? I see these CEOs and they're going from this task to this workout, high intensity, they're type A and they're freaking out. I can see them clenching their jaw and grinding their teeth down. And I'm like, yeah, let's throw in another high intensity workout. You're overloading that system and you're causing inflammation and you're basically traumatizing their internal system more than it already is. So if you look at someone's foundational aspects of their health and that is sound, then you can add in the tools that make a difference. So first, you manipulate the internal to then manipulate the external. Otherwise, you're just going in circles. There's no point. It's a waste of time. People only have so much time in a day. You can't sit here and give someone 20 things to do for recovery or for physical therapy. I'm giving people 20 different exercises. They're not going to do them anyways. And then they're going to shame themselves, feel bad, and inflame themselves because they're shaming themselves all day long. And they're still not going to do it. So think about what the person needs at that time and psychologically what they're being blocked by and help them get past those blocks. Because it's easy and every person is different. You just, again, need to break down the skill, break down what you're trying to teach them so that you can get through to them. So everything with the physiology of recovery, what does everyone think of when they think of recovery? That's why I wanted to ask you guys if you recover. So who recovers? Raise your hand. Really? I'm like, all right, guys, this is important. So when you say recovery, I know you know recovery. Anyone else, I want to hear what your version of recovery is.
Daily meditation practice.
And what do you feel you get from that?
A calming, breath, stillness, connection to others and to myself. And then, listening through that process where my body needs attention, potentially, or to stop paying attention to a certain particular area.
So that's perfect. So did you know you can increase vagal tone by meditating, by breathing? So vagal tone means you're in a parasympathetic state. When you stimulate the vagus nerve, it basically goes down your spine, through your neck, and it tells the body to relax. So if you don't ever stimulate that, you're not relaxed, and you're in a sympathetic dominant state at all times. So you have epinephrine, norepinephrine, your cortisol, your stress hormones are through the roof. And so meditation is actually, you look at the research, and everyone knows about the hierarchy of research, correct? As far as like what's credible, Men's Fitness versus, articles online versus websites versus TikTok. So the hierarchy of research is very important because a lot of things are biased, and the science we all talk about are those randomized controlled trials, systematic reviews, and meta-analyses. So if you look at that information, that's basically what we know as human beings. That's what we can reproduce again and again, and we see trends and we correlate things, and that's how we innovate as humans, and we get better, and we try to make our lives better. So when you look at the research behind meditation, even behind laughter, social communication, social connection, you are going to heal more and be more in a parasympathetic state when you meditate, when you breathe, and breath is huge. So if someone's stressed out and you see and they're impulsive, and I want you guys to really pay attention to these small things because they're not small, and when someone comes in the door, they tell you more than you can ever see. So are they mad? Are they coming at you? You can't even finish a sentence because they're cutting you off. If they're in that type of state, their system could be toxic. They could have environmental toxins, heavy metals in their brain, and it's making them impulsive. So you never know what someone's going through. So understanding, again, what the person's baseline is, and then what things you can take from the research and from clinical data to encourage an enhanced system or just a normal foundation. So a lot of times with my patients, they're like, should I do this? Should I do that? I'm like, you don't breathe. You shouldn't do the Normatec. Just breathe. Go in a dark room and breathe. And so it's crazy. So I'm like, if you can't breathe, I'm like, you're like putting drapes on a broken window. Like there's no reason to do it. So it's important to understand, again, why you're doing something and what it's doing to the person, and physiologically, what cascade of events follows that recovery method. Because if you don't know, then you're just shooting in the dark. And it's important. I know it seems overwhelming in the beginning because there's so much stuff, and I try to consolidate it all for you and do all this research that I've loved to dive into my entire life. So we don't know a lot as humans. So look at the research, see what it does, and see how it can impact someone's life. And again, pay attention to the small details because less is more with this stuff. I will have people take time off and they'll get strength gains, muscle gains, coordination gains because their nervous system is able to function correctly. So if you're not going to fix the systems of your body and the foundational aspect of your health, there's no point in doing anything else because you're literally just inflaming everything and overloading a system that's already overloaded too much. So cellular injury after you work out, then you have immune response, and then you have lymphatic clearance and parasympathetic restoration. So you go up into sympathetic, Your body's inflaming everything. You have to have some micro tears. You break things down so that you can build better. You fill back with nutrition, and then you get back into, well, lymphatic clearance. Anyone work on the lymphatic system here? Does anyone know a lot about the lymphatic system? I know in Hollywood we're all like, lymph drainage. But no one really knows why they're doing it anyways with that either.
But I do it often.
What do you do?
I am the magic lady presenting tomorrow on fashion and all of this and how to tamper it. But the lymphatic system does not have its own mechanical pump.
Yeah.
The pump in our body is the heart. So
Exactly.
muscles, your lymphatic system is driving it.
So as far as stagnation, I tell everyone it's like pipes in your body. These are water pipes. You got a bunch of clogged hair and all these little crevasses of your body. You can see when someone's lacking range of motion, well, that means the fascia's involved and the fascia connects to the lymph. So if things are stagnant, there's no circulation, there's no oxygenation, you cannot heal something that's stagnant. So if someone comes in and you see them locked down like this, where you could tell they should be taller, but they're not, where is that height? I actually make people so tall that they have to take the hem out of their pants because they gain their height back. But where was that height before? It's suffocating their organs. It's suffocating their fascia. It's basically clamping everything down. And then I tell everyone, you're like Indian burning. I don't know if we can say that anymore, but what's the other word? I don't know. There's no other word for that. So you're taking things and you're rubbing, and all day long, any move you make, it's just friction, 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 whether it's tendon over a bone, muscle to tendon, it doesn't matter. Things aren't efficient. You're not transferring load. You're not transferring forces. You're not efficient. So I work with a lot of professional athletes that don't care about this stuff, and they're just waiting for an injury. So you could probably predict what kind of injury they're going to have based on their movement mechanics. So you look at someone, you watch forward head posture, what they're doing, and eventually they're going to get an injury. So instead of just waiting for things to happen, look at their foundation and maximize that, and then build on top of that, because you'll have patients and clients for life. But lymphatic clearance is everything. I'm like, go to her lecture. Lymphatic clearance is not just about how, because people out here do it for bloating. Oh, my face is heavy or fat, so I want to move my fluid. Why is your fluid being stuck in your face? Because your jaw is so clenched, your ducts and the pathway to drain that fluid has hair clogs. Again, your pipes are clogged. So until they're clean, people are like, should I take this supplement? Why? You have clogs everywhere. And so let's put more toxins, more synthetic products, more things when you haven't addressed the baseline yet. So all of this is so important, and this is recovery. Those modalities are little ways to manipulate the nervous system, whether it's stimulating, upregulating the sympathetic nervous system or downregulating the nervous system. This is just talking about a little bit when you exercise, what happens. Again, the cascade of events, increased cortisol, going into a sympathetic fight or flight state. We're all just animals trying to survive. But then if you don't come out of that sympathetic state, that's where you start to get some issues, because you're releasing the same hormones. Everything is about, your neuroendocrine system. Your brain is sending signals to the rest of your body. What are those signals? Fight, run, hide. You want it to be in a state of peace. And so if there's always chaos, your system's always inflamed, you're just waiting for toxicity and then eventually autoimmune if there's too many toxins at once. So again, the cascade just goes through what's happening, the little micro tears, your macrophages, your body's trying to clean things up, you're breaking things down. The chemical processes break down things that there's chemical waste, where then your little guys come in, they clean it up, and they take it out. So if you miss any part of that chain, then doing anything on top of that, there's a disconnect with your body, and you're not going to function correctly. And we only have so much blood, so if your body's just trying to work on this friction here and that there and that there and digest your food and all of this stuff, you're inefficient. So you can maximize performance and maximize someone's movement patterns, their coordination, and everything they're doing with you if you just understand how to manipulate their nervous system. So everything's about getting back to homeostasis. Homeostasis is your baseline. That's functional norm. That's the optimized levels in your blood. And how do you know what the levels are in your blood? Does anyone test blood? Nice. Nice, 2. Has anyone thought about that? It seems overwhelming. Who do you even go to? It's easy nowadays where, like, if you go on my website, I actually work with a company that's from Boulder, Colorado, and they work with the Department of Defense, and they test the most genes. So your genetics tell you a lot too. It's actually kind of crazy. And they also test your allergies and your blood. So if you're lacking things where your system functions optimally by having these numbers and you're low on a few numbers, well, then let's go do high intensity. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. Your system's already struggling. You don't add on to that. So with these companies, they're in Colorado. They can send a LabCo person to come to your house. You can pay for them to come to you. You can go to a LabCo, and everything is done online. So if you find a company that you trust, and I never tell someone to do something unless I've done it myself, because how can you recommend something when you haven't done it yourself? Again, those things are very important. And Frank Nash said it best in Chicago at the summit. He was talking about how no one does the bare minimum. So if you just show up and do the bare damn minimum, and I like doing above the bare minimum, but like with our society right now, I feel like it's just normal to do bare minimum, but just show up for people. You know, these people count on you. And if you're going to do something, put your all into it. I know sometimes there's things going on or you have a toxic environment, but again, optimize your lifestyle, your environment so that you could show up with clarity for your people. Because this is so important. We're like, you know, harvesting these little good people that want to better others all over the world. So we're a rare breed, just to let you know. And health is basically defined on how quickly you can go back to homeostasis and how quickly your brain can communicate with the rest of your body. Oh, something's going on down there. Oh, you sprained your ankle, ninja, and it's done. If you have all these things clogged, things can't get fluid. I'll have people sprain their ankle and they're so hypermobile and not coordinated that their body locks because it's just trying to stabilize itself. So then it'll be swollen like a huge egg on their ankle for a year because everything is stuck and everything is stagnant. So let's add plyometrics on top of that. Let's not. So again, understand what is their body doing and watching how they move, just looking how they show up, their range of motion, assessing their range of motion. Does anyone do assessments? FMS? SFMA? Very nice. What other things? What do you do with these assessments? Do they go anywhere?
It's supposed to be retesting.
For who though?
For the client. What do you mean for who?
Just what do you do with this information? Do you tell them about it? Do they know what you're retesting? Do they understand these numbers?
They should.
Yes, and it's important to educate people. But if someone comes in with a crazy foundation and they're already impulsive, I have some people that look at me and they're like, don't explain that to me. And I'm like, all right, next time. But I'll plant a seed and I say, I see. And I tell them, I'm like, all right, not today, I'll work with you. But tomorrow we're gonna talk about this because it's important. So planting little seeds and telling people, or I do videos. It's very important to assess. So I use the SFMA, FMS. If you assess and you just keep looking back, even videos looking at someone, it's unbelievable how someone can change in just a session by manipulating their nervous system. So assessment is huge. And it doesn't have to be some crazy thing. Again, if you just do it just to do it, just to have the information, put some actionable items to that. Hey, this is where you are. This is where you should be. You could have some, trouble if you have limited range of motion. You could have trouble putting stuff on the shelf. Help them relate it to their life because they're going to be more motivated to do it. And people love this stuff. My people in the beginning, again, they hate you. They hate it. They hate me. I tell them, I'm like, you're going to have a deep hatred for me in the beginning because your brain wants to be comfortable and it doesn't like what I'm about to introduce. So just get out of your own way and let's do this. But then they become these little ninjas where they're like, hey, this happened and I did that. I chose that modality. Was that right? I'm like, yes, it was. So I slowly start to wean away from giving them the information. And before you know it, they're independent and they don't need you, but they will never leave you. So that's where you get job security. Go ahead.
There's a good saying, I'm sure a lot of us have heard it. If you're not assessing, you're guessing.
Yes, literally. I mean, even with the recovery methods, what are we doing? Are you recovered because you feel like you're recovered? And these research articles, some of them are only based on subjective data. So it's because the person feels better. So everyone's like, oh, the cold plunge is horrible. This is bad. Oh, don't do this. Why? What was the patient population? What did they find? What were they finding? What were they even testing? Were they testing biomarkers? Were they testing actual objective data, or were they testing people's opinions? Because that will change the choice that you make with the modality based on the results that they find. So again, these little details, doing the basics, just the basics, pay attention to the little details. So this is the recovery hierarchy. You regulate the nervous system, you clear the lymphatic system, you support the blood chemistry, and then you apply the modality. If you get nothing else from today, this, literally this, and I have it a few more times just in case you miss. Real recovery, you want the right input. You want to stimulate the right system. What needs to be recovered? How do we even know this information? So understanding the foundation of where you should be as a baseline, what it means to be healthy at our foundational level, then you add in exercise, then you add in other modalities in recovery, and then you're literally an elite athlete. I have these CEOs that used to be fragile, these housewives that would turn their neck and spasm their whole side of their body for 2 weeks and cry and sit in a room for 2 weeks. And now the one lady fell down the stairs and she's like, I fell down the stairs. And I just got right back up and I was fine. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty crazy. So it's unbelievable what you could do as far as health insurance with just protecting them and protecting their injuries, injury prevention. And you become efficient and you feel good because you see them change. You see their personality change. You see them show up differently from how they breathe. But again, understanding the foundational stuff is understanding what is included in foundational aspects of health. So your environment. The environment is huge. No one really thinks about that, but it's huge. From psychological things to toxins, it's so important. Water, what kind of water are you drinking? Tap water? Is it filtered? Because I go look at the stats of what's in the water and it's unbelievable what's in the water. So I look from like 20 years ago to now, I don't know how we're not mutants, because in the water is like heavy metals, arsenic, lead, antibiotics, birth control pills. So eventually we're gonna be resistant to antibiotics. So again, if we start caring about these foundational aspects of health, we'll find where the problem is. We're the environmental people, because all the chemicals and things that we put in the environment are changing. They're going into our water and they're impacting our health. And we never had this information before because it's we wait till it happens and then we're like, oh, sorry, bring it back. So they'll take 20 years and be like, wow, that many people died. Maybe we should stop doing that. So it's important for us to know what the information is, because not a lot of people know the information. Research, ask why, be curious about what you're doing. So we're going to look at the internal biochemistry, genetics and toxins, and then neurological regulation, how you can manipulate your system at the drop of a hat. It doesn't matter where you are. You can implement techniques where you can completely switch your nervous system from sympathetic to parasympathetic. I can change my HRV. I can change my respiratory rate. So getting things where you're, wearables, where you're tracking this data, anything you have, like I said, even videos. So you can show someone, because they're biased in the beginning, so they don't understand it. So when they see it on a video, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how different I look. And then they'll get on board even more buy-in, more retention. And then we're going to talk about lymphatic flow, how to clear the lymphatic system. This is recovery. So when I work on people, sometimes I'll do manual therapy. If their system is toxic, they'll get the flu the next day. I was like, they're like, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't feel good. I was like, there's so much goo in you that us working it a little made it toxify your body and make you sick. I'm like, that's disgusting. You should not get a massage and feel sick. That means you kicked up dust that was stored in your tissues and it's toxifying your blood and your body's showing symptoms. So it's very important to understand this stuff, because I have patients that are like, oh, I don't want to do massage anymore because I don't like it. And I inform them, no, it's important. You have to move everything's about movement. You should never just be stagnant, never be sedentary, never be just resting. Just do things in a controlled way where you're not hurting people. So your blood is your baseline, knowing your baseline levels, knowing if you're deficient in anything. So I'm going to show a patient study, a patient case where, it was a high functioning person. They had an 8-pack. They're doing all this crazy stuff and they had no omega-3s. They couldn't remember things. There was so much going on in their system and they were overloaded with homocysteine. Does anyone know what homocysteine is? So it just shows that one of the detox pathways is not working correctly. So instead of being able to break down homocysteine into glutathione, the body doesn't have that middle enzyme, and it basically accumulates homocysteine. So accumulated homocysteine causes stroke, heart attack. So this person looked like an athlete, looked insane. And then all of a sudden they're doing all the right things. They're recovering, doing all this stuff. And then you go and look and they could have a stroke at any minute. And it's like, it really puts it into perspective. What are you doing? Are you doing it because it actually is doing something or because it's a fad? Allergy testing. So did you know that you can accumulate toxins in your day and then your system becomes so overwhelmed, even if you didn't have an allergy, it becomes so hypersensitive that you will show symptoms. So I actually had that happen where it was too many things. I had like dairy, I was boxing and like the dust was coming out of the bag and it got in my eyes. And I started sneezing, I started breaking out in hives everywhere and my throat started closing. So I drove myself to the hospital and he's like, I'm glad you got here. He's like, he's like, this is one of the worst reactions I've ever seen. And I was like 21. I was like, never had a reaction in my life. So how does that happen? And it's just little things that are triggering your system, inflaming your body to where your body's like, I can't take this anymore. And it reacts because it's just trying to help you, to stop you from triggering those toxins. So understanding where you're inflamed and what things in your environment contribute to that inflammation, because then when you're trying to heal someone, be like, oh, you're allergic to dairy, stop eating milk and cheese all day long. And that'll help us because the fluid and the lymph pushes on the nerves. So someone can think they have pain. When I have someone come in and they have multiple places of pain, you don't just have injuries all at once everywhere. It shows that their system is toxic, it's inflamed. So when you have systemic signs where it's multiple areas bilaterally, they talk about, I don't feel good, I feel down, I feel run down. Look at these little details. It's like CSI of the body. It's amazing. And once you start really diving into it, it's going to be second nature. And then that's your new baseline for life. That's why I really want you guys to care about this stuff because it's so important. So with any kind of deficiency, slower neuromuscular response, poor adaptation, poor healing response. So you're going to actually heal slower if you have a wound. Say you get a cold, it's going to attack your system and take you down a lot harder than someone that's efficient. Looking at SNPs, does anyone know or has anyone ever tested their genetics? Nice, really? What did you test? Or what did you find? Oh, okay.
Then I did methylation panel.
Nice. That's what I'm talking about. 23andMe.
Life-changing.
You what?
Life-changing.
Life-changing.
Yeah.
You don't realize your genetics tell you things. So do anyone know Gary Brecka? He's like huge right now and all over the place. He tests 5 SNPs. 5. The company I work with tests 750. So he makes recommendations on someone's health and because the people that go to him, a lot of my patients are like, he never calls me back. I'm like, I never say anything, but it's crazy to see that he never calls them back and they're all giving him 50 grand a month. And I'll say it if he's here. But anyways, it's important to see that you can't, because people get hurt or they, things start breaking down even more and then they go to my guys. So my genetics showed me that I had a gene mutation. That I can drink as much coffee as I want and it doesn't impact my system whatsoever. It was the greatest news I've ever heard. Literally. It also said that I benefit from sunshine. And I feel like a cat where I'm just meh, in the sun. That's literally how I feel. And I was low in vitamin D for a while. So that impacts your mood. It impacts, again, how you show up. So what modality should I use? Sun. That I literally prescribe that for people. So it's important to understand what the person needs at that time based on what you're assessing in that moment. Otherwise, you're just, again, guessing. So with the SNPs, if you have a genetic mutation, you could have a methylation problem. The methylation problem is your detox pathway. That means you can't detox things. So if you have foreign invaders, if you have viruses, bacteria, fungus, any of this stuff coming in, your system can filter it out through your lymphatic system and get it out. But your body can't do that if you have a gene mutation without an enzyme. So then I started supplementing this enzyme and it started eating up all my homocysteine and now it's okay, we're good. So again, homocysteine elevation can lead to a stroke or a heart attack. And it messes with your memory, with your coordination. So Are you going to do balance with that person today when, their lab values are horrible? Start there. Make connections with companies. And even if you want to ask me more questions about that, how do you start that? It's just very important, the blood work and the genetics. Because if you're sitting here stimulating the lymphatic system, doing lymph drainage, going and getting lymph massage, and you can't, your detox pathway is blocked, you're, again, just causing more problems. And you see people pay for these things, and you're like, man, they didn't have to do that. You're actually making it worse. Or these people that do high intensity all the time, and I see how stressed out the person's nervous system is, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they just need a hug. Like literally, I coddle people is what I call it. Cause they're like my little babies, and I have to make them feel safe cause their system is fearful. And when the body's in a state of fear, it's in a state of fight or flight or fawn and freeze. The environmental toxins. Has anyone ever been impacted by mold, fungus? I'm like, you don't even know. So we're going to talk about the patient in a second, but this person had elevated mold spores in an HVAC, in an air conditioning unit. It's 1,500 spores. This person had 997,000 mold spores in the air at one time. And it was the 2 most deadly neurotoxic. I didn't know mold could give you cancer. Did you know that? Mold can give you cysts. Because again, it's a foreign invader. Your body puts a cyst around it because it's trying to protect you from that toxin. Our bodies are pretty resilient and pretty insane. But if we don't know these things are happening, so now, you're high intensity, your lymph stuck, you're deficient in vitamin B, you can't think, you never get sunlight, and then this stuff. You're breathing mold all day long. This mold was on forensic files as the murderer. This person's mold, this patient's mold. It literally was the killer on forensic files. Stachybotrys and Aspergillus. So it's crazy. So the person just felt bad and they didn't understand why. Well, water damage. In California, it happens way more than you realize. And when your system's stuck in this toxic state, things start to happen. Other foreign invaders are like, hey, this acidic environment is great. Let's set up shop here. So you start to accumulate heavy metals. You start to accumulate parasites, mold, more fungus, because it's an optimal environment. It's not an oxygenated environment. You got the clogged pipes with hair everywhere. So the little invaders like to live there. You're not digesting your food because you're stuck in a sympathetic state. You can't digest your food in a sympathetic state. So if you're not digesting your food, but you're eating, it just sits in your stomach and rots. And then bacteria, fungus has to come in and break down that food. So I have people that have SIBO, and they'll take antibiotics, and then it comes back. And then they take antibiotics, and then it comes back. And then go in the room and breathe. Go breathe in the room. Because it's not about, you're stuck in sympathetic. You cannot digest your food. You can never rest and digest because your nervous system won't allow it. So again, looking at the objective data, the pictures, the before and after pictures, I can change someone's entire skeleton, their range of motion in one time, just by doing some breath work and then putting them through some coordinated movements. So I look at these pictures, I'm like, damn, look at how different it was. And I can't even believe it. But it gives you guys objective things to look at. Not everything, you don't have to overthink it and always have to do crazy long objective data or objective assessments, but you should. And I love Gray Cook and I love Lee Burton because they're the ones, again, that not everyone's doing that. We're all doing our own things. They wanted to bring it together and try to look at the research to see how do we develop the best assessment for what we know, because we don't really know a lot, but we're trying. And those are the people you want to stand by. The people that are trying to put good into the world and they stand behind their character and their word. So looking at the range of motion, if they're sideways like this, oh geez. My 17 things fell off. If they're sideways, we're just going to do this. Cascade of events. If they're sideways like this, what is the tissue here doing? It's locked down. It's an ischemic environment. So you don't have to know that much. You don't have to overthink it and, the person behind the curtain where you don't know everything. You do. That can't breathe. So it's important to open that. And you're going to balance them back up. and do it in a controlled way where they can actually, because some people, their bodies live like that for years. It's going to be painful to go out of that. So you don't just take them to the end range the other way. You slowly introduce things. You start to get them to open up. Oh, if you catch yourself on the computer always going this way, put your computer on the left once in a while. And they'll be like, what? Just every once in a while. Don't make it a big thing. They're not going to do it if you make it a big thing. And they just will obsess over it and inflame themselves all day long while they're not with you. So again, giving them little bits of information that they can utilize to help themselves and educate themselves, but in a controlled way that doesn't overwhelm people. Looking at the range of motion that they need for functional movement. How many degrees of motion do we need? So, people are like, I don't want to do that. It's like a table exercise and they're all playing 18 holes of golf. I'm like, if you can't lift your foot on the table, then you shouldn't be playing golf. I'm like, the forces coming at you in your life are 80,000 times what I'm doing with you. So understanding what range of motion you need and then looking at their habits, assessing and getting their subjective information on what they do daily, because everything is about where is their skeleton? How is it sitting for how many hours a day? You see so much when you start to look at this information. And again, they like that you ask questions and it makes them more motivated because they know that you care. Because you do, and you should. Again, otherwise, not the right profession. We need to change our profession. It's important to care about this stuff. We can't just let everything slide and not care. It's really important. So this was the patient I was talking about. High cortisol, low vitamin D, low omega-3s, poor HRV, 13 HRV regularly, 11 sometimes. Person was like dead. So HRV, anyone know HRV? It just tracks the amount of time between the beats of your heart rate. It shows how recovered you are, how parasympathetic your state is at that time. So if you don't have a high HRV, you're stuck in a sympathetic state. So then high intensity. No, I'm just kidding. So then breath. And severely elevated homocysteine, shallow breathing. Again, the person tells you a lot when you walk in. If you see them breathing with their accessory muscles, they should be breathing with their diaphragm. The pump that she was talking about, your breath is the pump for your lymphatic system. If your diaphragm is not exhaling all the way, if you're not exhaling and pushing that lymph, then it's not going to move and it stays stagnant. And then toxins build up and toxins store. So look at how they're breathing. Are their accessory muscles their dominant pattern? Because that's a big deal. That shows me their personality. I can tell that they don't sleep well. I can tell they're impulsive. I can tell that they're going to be the ones cutting you off whenever you're in the middle of a sentence. And you can tell that they are quick to react. And so looking at that, you start to tell someone that, like I'll work on someone's SCMs and we'll stimulate the vagus nerve and they'll fall asleep. And they're like, what the hell did you just do? I just fell asleep. And they're like, I never fall asleep. And like their friends are like, he fell asleep? I can't believe he fell asleep. Because your body has been in fight or flight for so long that just a little stimulation of the vagus nerve and it's like, oh my gosh, thank God. Because it needs to heal. You're just running into a wall, burning the candle at both ends otherwise. So like I said, the environment impacts your body. The person couldn't remember anything, literally started losing memories, couldn't communicate correctly, would lose train of thought, would not be able to recall events. Extreme fatigue, brain fog, pressure, eyes were changing, like a pressure, and like you could see the vessels in the girl's eyes that were it just looked like there was a lot going on and we didn't know what was going on, but she knew there was something wrong. And so went and did MRIs, a 16 millimeter brain cyst. So looking at the research of Aspergillus and Stachybotrys, the body has a tendency with mostly Stachybotrys to put a cyst around the mold. And you'll most likely get cysts in your lungs, your sinuses, and then eventually your brain. And the person had 12 2-millimeter cysts in her lungs, 12 to 15 2-millimeter cysts, had two 2-centimeter cysts in both sinuses. And then the 16-millimeter cyst, you can see it in the back of her brain. That empty spot right there is a brain cyst pushing on the cerebellum. So the person bent over one time and the whole room spun and was like, that wasn't normal. And so just could tell that something was wrong and said, hey, I'm gonna make a change because this isn't okay, something's not right. This was her blood work for her reaction to food. So it's basically how inflamed you get from certain foods. Everything should be under 10. And then you see casein in milk, 2,000. So you're already inflamed, say you have a parasite, say you did some high intensity training, you're swollen, you just feel achy. And then you start eating cheese with an inflammation profile of 2,000. So you see how not only your environment, but what is happening and what reacts with your body is very important to understand. Because then you can manipulate these factors and you're precise. You know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and you make these decisions for people, you teach them about it, and their entire goal changes, and they'll reach their goals sooner. So look, it seems overwhelming, like, oh, I don't even know. Milk and casein, that's it. Those are the only two things. And your allergies can change over time. You can develop allergies and you can get rid of allergies. So the person that we work with the blood was like, if you stop eating dairy for 3 months, it'll reset your sensitivity to it and you'll be able to slowly reintroduce it and it won't inflame you. Just something in the dairy, it's too much. Your system's trying to tell you something. Your lymphatic system's too overloaded. It can't take this garbage. Things aren't what they used to be as far as quality in our food. So if your body's telling you something's aggravated, don't eat it. At least take 3 months off, reset your system. Because then all that inflammation can go heal your workout. It can go towards healing you versus sitting here wasting time trying to break down this food and inflame you. Talking about the mold and what it can do to your system. So this was eye-opening for me because I never realized that mold can actually like kill you and give you cancer. So it really attacks the kidneys. It attacks your filter organs. So again, telling everyone to take these supplements, take this peptide, this, that, this, and their kidneys are shutting down because they have a mold environment. So when you're giving recommendations on things, understand why you're giving recommendations on things and understand what impact that's going to play on the person's life. This, guys, this is what I'm saying. Remember? Regulate the nervous system. You want to clear the lymphatic system, support your blood chemistry, and then add the modality. Now, when I work with people, you know, they're like, I didn't eat that. I feel great. You can see the clarity in their eyes. You can see the sharpness in their communication. It's beautiful to watch because you can see brain fog on people. And again, when you start paying attention to the little details, like I said, it's so important. And then you have all these variables under control. Then you can manipulate. Oh, you're going on a flight? Wear compression socks. Prevent 90% of blood clots on airplanes, and one out of 3 people. Why not? I used to coach a bunch of NASCAR teams, and we flew every weekend. And these guys, they were all drinking after the races and things. And I'm like, I got to control what I can because it's important. You want to work with the person's lifestyle. Some people aren't going to change. So then you start to manipulate other factors so they can still live their life. Again, manipulating all the variables, they become resilient. Life is easy. And then they get to focus on things that they love to do and have relationships with their family, their kids, go travel. Not everything's about, you know, getting in arguments with people and just toxicity. Because when someone's angry all the time, their system could be toxified. Literally. I see it with kids too. They ADD, all this stuff. And they're like, here, give them ADD medicine. They have heavy metals in their brain. So give them ADD medicine that is also researched to have heavy metals in it. Perfect. The key to being able to understand and choose the right modality is understanding what how to manipulate the nervous system and what the nervous system does to our different systems. So peripheral nervous system, central nervous system, the brain communicates with the rest of the body. But this is very important, the autonomic nervous system. That's what works heartbeat, breath, it's involuntary things. So if you're stuck in fight or flight, this happens automatically. You're messing with your heart rate and you don't even realize it. So the autonomic nervous system is broken down into the parasympathetic and sympathetic. Again, if you're always stuck in sympathetic, you're never in rest and digest. You can't heal and recover a sympathetic dominant state. That doesn't work. Like I said, that's why people get SIBO. They get bacteria in their gut because they're eating the food, but their system's like, we're running marathons. And so it shuts off digestion. It doesn't want to deal with that now because it's doing something else. So that food sits inside of you and rots. Literally. And again, we talked about this, just talking about the autonomic balance, but also looking at the shallow breath. Chronic stress is shown through the way they breathe. It's so important to recognize what they're showing you when they show up. Impacts everything from cognitive function, healing, neuromuscular facilitation, everything related to health and wellness and fitness. Talking about the lymphatic system, we discussed this, clearing metabolic waste, immune regulation. So, people, if they get sick for 2 weeks, you see people getting sick all the time. You can actually impact their system. Start having them clear some waste, start doing more stretching and elongation type movements versus shutting things down and crushing things even more. Because you can really change. It's not scientific, like, where you're building trucks over here. It's literally that easy. If they're locked down, open them. Open the pipes. That's all you have to work towards. If they're not breathing, get them to breathe. If they're breathing shallowly, we're going to do this in lab too. We're really going to go through this. I could change someone's entire range of motion in one time just by having them work on some exhales. Because your exhale goes to your pelvic floor. So if you're not exhaling, you're never tapping into the muscles that protect your lower back. People are like, I have back pain. And they're like, I'm like, yes, I know. So this is one of my UFC fighters showing how powerful stagnation is. This is one time. We did some manual therapy and then we did some coordination movements. This is TJ Dillashaw, a UFC fighter. 1.5 hours later, this is what he looks like. He's like, I look like I went through camp. And I didn't even realize. I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. But that's why it's important to take this objective information, put it in their files so that you can start to correlate these things. Because it's really cool when you go back and you're like, wow, look at all this. And you really learn how your manipulation of their nervous system can change their life. So look at how prepared his body looks. If you look at the line here, that's where his spine is stressed, here and here. So when he's moving, his body is compensating and his mechanism is to put it in his joint. And so he's over approximating at these areas. And so he's not working as a conditioned system. He's working as a couple, strong parts and just approximation. The muscles aren't activating correctly and he's not transferring force and load correctly. So again, why are we doing it? And a lot of people do this. NFL, it's crazy what I find where like no one's looking at the basic stuff. You don't have to do the craziest new trend. It's all about the basics because no one's doing this stuff. I'm not even kidding you. It's actually unbelievable. Talking about the diaphragm and the vagus nerve. The diaphragm, the breath is everything. Breathing is everything. It's how you oxygenate your body. You cannot oxygenate your body if you're not breathing. So when someone shallow breathes like that, I know their body's polluted with CO2 because they're not exchanging oxygen. So I know they're going to be impulsive. I know they're going to be angry. And again, when you see these things, they're trying to tell you something. Yes, there's some psychological things going on with it. People have traumas, things that go on in their life. Most of it's related to what's going on in their state of their system right now. Talking about the pressure change in the thoracic spine and just pushing the lymph. Again, the calf pump is how we pump and circulate our blood. That's how our blood circulates back to our heart. The lymphatic system doesn't have a pump. So if you're sitting around being lazy, all your goo and your hair chunks are just like sitting in your little crevasses. And I try to tell people that because that's literally what's happening. Things are just storing and staying there. And it's toxic and it messes with your pH and it messes with your immune system. So again, look at the blood, look at how they breathe, look at the lymph, and then choose the modality. I just put together, I'm a nerd. And I just put together, I'm like, what are we looking at as far as time? We're good, right? Perfect. So I wanted to give you guys some research, some tangible research from randomized controlled trials, systematic reviews, and meta-analyses. These are the top levels of evidence. We should not look at other clinical data because we're always trying to do new things and try new things and better ourselves. But looking at those, as far as the hierarchy of evidence, looking at those levels of evidence, you know that it's reproducible, you know it was a quality study, blinded, you know that things were tested correctly and that everything, all the variables were controlled. So you know the information is correct. So they tested a bunch of, rowers, I thought it was rugby players. And it talked about how they were deficient and barely deficient. And once you supplemented them, their entire performance outcome changed. So if you're going to sit there and be deficient in iron, iron is what transports oxygen to your blood and to the rest of your body. If you're deficient in iron, and then you're performing at an elite level, you're really setting yourself up for failure. So knowing the baseline information and knowing how to manipulate it, because you don't need Normatec with this. You could just supplement, but you don't supplement the rest of your life, because you could have deficiencies. You fix the deficiency, because everyone's like, oh, I'm going to take this vitamin the rest of my life. You can take a vitamin and it can be, you can have an overabundance of a vitamin, and it can cause problems too, like severe problems. My one patient, she was deficient in vitamin D, and she's like, so I took a bunch, and then she went crazy. We rechecked, and her labs were through the roof. You can have calcification in your tendons. It's not good for your heart. There's so many things. I'm like, it's not a go more is more. It's all about just normalizing yourself. So once you fix your deficiency, we're pretty easy as far as how resilient we are. We'll stay there until we start doing other things or we start lacking over time. But once you fix your deficiency, you're even again. You don't have to take things the rest of your life. Make sure you're not overtaking supplements or vitamins. You shouldn't just be taking things to take it. You should have a deficiency. You track the deficiency. You know how much you're supposed to take. You get it back, retest, and that's it. You don't just keep taking vitamins for life. Looking at MMA fighters, they use manual lymph drainage. So with manual lymph drainage, it's light pressure. So you know how everyone with working out, I want a deep tissue, I got to go hard, I want elbows. That will cause more inflammation. So if you're trying to move lymph, you want to use light touch. So we used to work on people with elephantiasis, where they're, pooling of fluids in their legs. And it seems ridiculous, but we'd go like touch and twist, touch and twist. And it's like the simple, because the receptor in the skin, that is the lymph receptor, only responds to the light touch. If it's too much, it's going to start bringing inflammation there. So this showed that they had better strength. They had less creatine kinase, so less inflammatory markers after performance with deep oscillation, manual lymph drainage. So compared to the control, and electric stimulation, so the handheld devices, whole body vibration. I was like, that's stupid. One, you should never just hone in on one thing. I love when people are like, I need this modality. It's better than every other one. Nothing's better than every other one. Never. Never. There's never an absolute with anything. It's what do you need in that situation. So if the person's showing that they're swollen, doing some vibration will help move that around. Doing some lymph drainage, telling them to go get a lymphatic massage will help move that fluid around and help their systems function at an optimal level. So there's ways to upregulate and downregulate the nervous system. Upregulate is get it to go into sympathetic. Downregulate is to get it to go back into rest and digest and return back to baseline. So there's different modalities that can stimulate the nervous system to do different things. So exercise, motor control, coordination, vibroacoustic therapy, different frequencies of music are so impactful. Frequencies impact our system because we're all electrical beings. So if you listen to music, if I have these celebrities that are like, they know everything and this, and they're just like angry, I put this frequency on 432 megahertz, and it's calming to the nervous system. Frequencies impact the inflammation in your body. Wi-Fi impacts the inflammation in your body. There was a Wi-Fi tower on the mold unit where that girl lived. Wi-Fi and the research grows mold. There was a tower, 5G tower. Then they put another one. Why do you think it grew so much? So again, understanding how things can manipulate your system at different frequencies, then you can choose one, if you need to get something out of their life that's impacting them, or two, you need to add something in that could help them. Different music, different frequencies, different songs do different things. So you can stimulate the nervous system with sound and actually bring it back down. Visualization. Did you know that you can, in the research, you can actually train and become better at a skill just by visualizing it? You can watch yourself do a skill. If you're doing it correctly while you're watching it, you will train the motor units and sensory units in your brain in a positive way, in a significant way. With spinal cord injuries, having a mirror where they think they're working their non-dominant side shows benefits on the side that's not even moving. So again, the physiology. We don't have to make sense of it, but once you understand it, it's not as overwhelming, and it makes sense, and it's so easy, and it's a little, again, a cascade of events is what I call it. If not everything is for everyone. If someone, when I was in NASCAR, we would do dry needling a lot. Someone's lymphatic system is stagnant, they're tense, they got little T-Rex arms because their nervous system is so stressed out. Let's stab them. That's gonna go over well. They get and because your lymph impacts your pain perception. Again, when there's swelling in your system, it pushes on the nerve and it causes pain. So you start swelling it more, and it's like a trauma to the person. It's like they're being attacked, physically attacked. And then breath work. You could ramp the system up and bring it back down with breath work. Other things to stimulate and downregulate the nervous system. It's pretty funny though, hugging trees. It's not on here, but it is one. I'm like, I couldn't fit everything on here. But did you know hugging trees? Tree hugger? It's real. Randomized control trial. So something with nature. I don't know, do we have to make sense of it? No, we don't. Go tell your people to hug some trees if they're angry. But you see where it starts to put it into perspective, what's actually important in life. You know, what do I need to do? Do I need to put this in? People are like, I should have done it way more. No, why? You're already pissing your body off. You shamed yourself once a day, every day until you saw me again from last time. And then that's just inflaming you. If you would have just been like, you know what? I don't care. That would have progressed you more as far as recovery than you shaming yourself every single day. Shame and fear eats away at your nervous system. Shame and fear are dictated by your understanding of the information. So if something is fearful to you, look at the information, understand it better, break it down. Massage, laughter, relationships, recovery clothing, even those meditation pods. But have you guys ever seen those? They use those with kids with autism, with kids with Down syndrome. They actually see their heart rate change in real time. So it's really crazy what we can do with light, with sound, with frequency. And you don't even really know it. You have this massage gun, you don't know what it does. No one knows what things do. They just use them. Why are you using it? Do things for a reason. And I've updated this because I wanted to put all the research in here and I want you guys to have this. So I'm going to give them the new PowerPoint because this information is so important. I want you to be able to refer back and understand the specifics of the research. So how do you stimulate lymphatic flow? This too, tapping on your face. Tapping in China, you know, they tap on their face, that stimulates lymphatic flow. Opening up the channels, their lymph ducts. So right by your neck, here, all of this is where the things drain. So like if you're all locked here and you see their SEMs are so tight and then the people are working out their jaw, or you know they're going to get a massage on their jaw, tell them, start here, open this up first. If this is what drains the fluid from your brain and this is locked down, let's work all this to push the fluid out that can't get out as is. So you see, they're gonna get a headache and they're gonna get angry and have to sleep the rest of the day. So again, it's basic understanding of the anatomy and understanding what to do. But do you guys know what dry brushing is? It's literally taking a brush with little bristles on it that's dry and rubbing it on your skin. It feels like you're like scratching your skin off. That's the light touch receptor I'm talking about. But you never in a million years would think grabbing this little bristle thing and with nothing on it and just rubbing it on your skin, all over your skin, is gonna stimulate the lymphatic flow. So like even if one of my actors has like a part or something coming up, do that before, you'll lose all this fluid because it kicks in the lymphatic system to drain what's being stagnant and pooled in different areas of your body. It's pretty cool. Like it's unreal. And I know again, it's overwhelming because there's so much. But no one tool is anything without the foundational stuff and without understanding what it actually does. You're like, oh, this is horrible. No, it's not. It's for who? The one person or for everyone? Because there's never absolute. You know, the cold plunge, you guys hear the negative stuff about the cold plunge recently. I love watching what people say and then going and looking up what the actual information is. So with the cold plunge, they're like, oh, it makes you lose power, it makes you lose strength. Again, look at the data. They tested cyclists, pro cyclists, put them in a cold plunge, then had them cycle directly after. They didn't do well. Don't do it if you're gonna go cycle for a performance that you're winning a medal right after. Maybe do it after the race. But it shows to stimulate the vagus nerve. It shows to put you in a parasympathetic state. It shows to change your pain perception. I do this with kids, with dry brushing too, but one of my celebrity kids was a psychopath. Couldn't stand her. Insane. I was like, you're gonna hurt someone when you're older because you're that nuts. And so I'm like, you need to go in, like they need adversity. They need discipline and they need adversity. So like the parents are like, you know, let her just do it. I'm like, nah. we're not doing this. I was like, 'cause you guys are all going down if that's the case. I'm like, you have to give them structure. And so I put her in the cold plunge, and like, I thought she was gonna kill me. Like literally like this, like I thought Satan was coming out of the girl, but completely changed her entire understanding of her life because it reduced her anxiety. Nothing's worse than the cold plunge. Life seems better after the cold plunge once you're out of it. So things like that where you can reset someone, or if someone's been comfortable for too long, throw them in a cold plunge. They're as far as how grateful they are will change. You get them stuck out of their reflex loop of thinking negatively. You see the people that are always, catastrophizing things where everything's a negative thought. That's inflammation. But that's their system being scared. Some people don't even know they're doing it. But give them safety in those times. The more safety you give people and the more correct guidance you give them, the safer they feel, the more they're gonna open up and get out of sympathetic state. It's that easy. Everything's about safety with me when I work on people. I coddle them, I tuck them in, I'm calling them later, I'm like, how are you? And they're like, wow, I really needed that. And then they get to the point where I'm like, I don't talk, they do everything, and I'm like, I don't know, you tell me what the answer is. So it's important to recognize you care about people in the beginning to be able to give them the independence they need. And again, they'll never leave you. It's job security. I tell people, I'm like, go. I don't want it, go. They're like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no. Oh, this didn't come out correct. I'm like, what the hell is this? So it was just talking about the different randomized control trials, systematic reviews, levels of evidence that show what lymph drainage can do. Do you know that gargling water stimulates your vagus nerve? Really? So if someone's not stressed out, you see they're impulsive, yelling at everyone, hey, go home and gargle some water. That will stimulate them to go into a rest and digest healing state. Humming, the vibration on our vocal cords also stimulates that. The dry brushing, compressive therapy, this will be on there. I don't know why it's half, but it just shows the levels of evidence. And again, don't just look at one article. Meta-analysis is a combination of randomized control trials and systematic reviews. So you want to look at multiple things. Look at the people that they tested. Again, we don't know anything as human beings. So you should look at what we know as humans, looking and investing in evidence-based research. I pay for a database through the American Physical Therapy Association, and it's like, a few $100 a year. It's the best thing I ever invested in, ever. Because if I look at like a fad online and I look at the ingredients, I go right to the research, look up the science. What is it doing physiologically to the body? And how is that going to impact your person? And do we not have research on it? That's why they're saying it's safe. There's some things where, like, we just found out statins actually cause more heart attacks than they help. Really? So for 20 plus years, statins, the only thing they give us for heart attacks, statins, actually shown to cause more heart attacks than help. And then, we don't have this information, and they're just like, all right, bring it back. Because the medical system is also a corporation, and it's become too much of a corporation, like beyond since COVID. And it's sad, because that's why I always stressed caring about people, because these are people, and we need to remember that and hold ourselves to that standard. Otherwise, doctors shouldn't be in the profession they're in. These are human beings. I had someone go to their doctor and they were like, something's wrong with my head. They're like, yeah, you're insane. Here's a horse tranquilizer to calm you down. The lady had a brain tumor. So not saying that, she's psychic and she knew that, but she knew her body and she knew something was wrong. Don't just dismiss someone. They could potentially, even if they don't know it exactly, they could potentially know something's going on. Try to help them figure it out or figure out something that's going on. Again, creating safety just by understanding. Just a bunch of different modalities, things you want to do, cognitive clarity. If you stimulate the vagus nerve through working the SCMs on the neck, the person gets up, and you can even do that. We're going to do it in lab too. I'm going to give you guys ways to use tools to do that. But the person gets up, you could see the clarity in their eyes. You can see the fluid drain from their face. I have people that tell me, they're like, wow, all the fluid drained from my face. I'm like, I love that you noticed, because most people don't. But giving people that information helps them look internally. The more they understand their internal, the more they'll understand their external. Again, everything's about the vagus nerve. When someone's neck looks like it's strangling them because it's so tight, kind of like mine, Stimulate the vagus nerve. No judgments. Neuromuscular training. So this is one of my fortes. I'm very good with manual therapy, but I also love training the brain. We only use a certain potential of our muscular fibers that we could potentially use. Our body is so lazy, it just wants to do what it wants to do with the easiest way possible. But if you keep the body guessing and you keep throwing stuff at the system and again, seeing how it reacts and trying to modify that, you can change your system so much. I used to think that I needed knee replacements when I was 20 because I used to just run and eat tuna and chicken and broccoli. This is 20 something years ago. And I wouldn't even run more than a mile and I thought I was in shape and my knee would crack and I'd like sit on the ground for 20 minutes. I'm like, this can't be it. And I had started doing the exercises with my patients and I've never had pain again. I ran a marathon, ran a Tough Mudder, do jujitsu, all these different things. Because once I got better, I was like, let's see where this goes. And I've never reverted back. Even though I own my own business, stressed out to the max, late for everything, always in sympathetic state, trying my best, guys. You got to take the person where they are. I got a lot of things thrown at me at all times. But you have to understand that because it's so important to bring it back down. Otherwise, you're burning the candle at both ends. And then something's going to give. And that's where autoimmune comes in. Your body's like, hey, we can't do this anymore. And those gene mutations I was talking about, you can actually trigger your system to mutate a gene. You can flip switches on with your genetics and you can turn switches off. So it's something where the body's like, this enzyme's coming in and it's like attack, attack, attack. We don't want that because it's scared. It's just trying to figure out and detoxify you because your system's overloaded. So if you sit there and you work on that stuff, then your system's healthy and you're moving forward and you never go back to that place. Even when I'm not healthy for months and like, each person's different as far as their level of healthiness, but I actually go pretty hard as far as how bad I am with myself because I have so much on my plate. But I've never, 20 years, will never go back, even in my sedentary ways. I would do the exercises with the patients. I got so much motor control. I remember the first day I did CrossFit and it's just little baby coordination exercises. And they're like, oh, can you do a pistol? And I just did a pistol. And I'm like, oh, I could probably do it on that kettlebell. And then I did a pistol on a kettlebell and they're all like, what? I'm like, I don't know. Because you become a ninja. Your body, like I said, instead of just like pools of garbage inside of you, your body becomes a machine. You're transferring force from the ground up. Your body, like people are like, oh, I have tendonitis in my elbows. I have, pain in my knees. I'm like, because you don't have a core. So things aren't working together through your core. You're just working as arms and legs. And it'll all normalize once you get them connected to their core. And again, what's the biggest part of their core? The exhale to their pelvic floor. If you don't exhale, you don't work your transverse abdominis. Your transverse abdominis is your weight belt for your back. You see how it comes full circle? Breath, lymphatic system. Breath, key to life. Breath is oxygen. Otherwise, you're polluted with CO2, become acidic, and you thrive. It's like an environment for disease. Parasites, mold, toxins, heavy metals. Sauna therapy. You know that the research shows that with sauna therapy, it actually lowered cholesterol just as well as cholesterol lowering medication. And in the research, it kind of confused me because, again, these are corporations. They don't want you knowing that. You got to read in the lines. So I looked at the data and I'm like, wow, that was so crazy that sauna changed so much and of the cholesterol, and the numbers were so different. And then in the conclusion, it said the sauna is no better than cholesterol lowering medication at lowering cholesterol. And I was like, oh, it's no better than that. So. And then I was like, wait a second. And I'm like, wait. I'm like, they almost got me. And I'm like, what do you mean? The cholesterol-lowering medications have so many side effects. There's so many negative impacts on your health. The sauna, you sweat. And your lymphatic system gets better and everything else gets better. You're lubricating your joints. You're moving your fluid. You're transporting oxygen and nutrients. You're keeping your joints alive and healthy. And it's not their disc. My gosh, the amount of discs thing. Oh, it's the disc. Oh, it's the disc. Then they got it in their head that it's the disc, and that's all they focus on. I have to get the surgery, otherwise the disc is not going to fix. It's not the disc. I have people get 3 surgeries, and I'm like, you have to get the surgery because you don't believe me, and I'm not doing this. So go get it. You'll see it's going to be worse, and then we'll break you down then. And the lady got 3 surgeries. They actually put an umbilical cord around her nerve. There was a compressed nerve. I was like, you have no muscle holding up your bone structure. You have no arch whatsoever. Everything's collapsing into itself, pooling of fluid there because there's no muscle or anything to push it back. And they're like, oh, you need an umbilical cord wrapped around the nerve. That's why you have pain. Do you see what we do? So I really like to show you guys that you are the future of healthcare. And I really want to stress that. These are just more and more data points on sauna. But I want to stress how important that is. Because the doctors, and not to say anything bad about doctors, you need things. You get in a car accident, go to the freaking emergency room. But as far as things to help your long-term health, you need to be your own health advocate, and you guys know more than most doctors on nutrition, on movement. Literally 98% of the doctors. I go to with these celebrities, I go to these doctors. The one doctor did the mold profile on that girl, and he was like, oh no, your blood work's clear, you don't have mold. And I was like, you can't test mycotoxins by taking blood. You have to do a urine analysis. He's like, oh, I got that doctor from Adam Sandler. And I was like, you were just so confident the way you were like, oh no, there's nothing. And I'm like, but you didn't even, oh, he's like, I didn't know that. Oh, then why did you speak to that? Because you could have crushed that girl. And the landlord sued her to try to scare her. And she could have just given up right then. But I was like, no, that's not how you test mold, buddy. And he's like, oh, I didn't know that. Well, now you do. It's irresponsible. I'm sorry. You shouldn't do that. And I don't like that. When you're smug about something you know nothing about, like when I speak to something, you don't know the amount of hours I've researched this topic. Because I will not speak to something unless I've really researched it. I've interviewed people. It's not only clinical research, it's actual case studies, it's data from real people. So that's so important. Always listen and be open to hearing things, because the base foundation of those little things are so important. Talking about the different, everyone says red light therapy, infrared. No one knows what they're talking about. There's 3 types of red light therapy. They each penetrate the tissues differently. So if you need lymph stimulation, you want to go with a more superficial. If you need deep muscle penetration, you go with the one that penetrates deeper. Again, you don't just do it just to do it. Some of these saunas don't even have the option to change it. But everyone's like, yeah, the sauna. We don't even know what we're doing as humans. So if you just look at this stuff, memorize this information, because it all stays the same. And then we just keep building on more and more science as more research comes out. Cold water therapy, contrast therapy, so much as far as benefit from all of this. But again, this stuff is only added in if you have your foundational aspects under control. So if you have swelling, or if you're tight, say you just did a crazy workout and you're inflamed and you feel yourself all swollen, do contrast bath, end on ice. If you're gonna do ice, don't do it for more than 20 minutes because it actually causes more swelling. So again, looking at those physiological data points help you to give people the correct information so they get the most out of it. But say you have a muscle spasm and you're tight, end on heat with the contrast bath because that vasodilates. So you see there's different ways to do different things. There's no one answer fits everything. The most research is shown on the cold plunge at 50 to 55 degrees. What are we doing at 37 degrees? I don't want to be in there at 37 degrees. 50 to 55 degrees, it's unbelievable. I'll go in there. But then eventually you acclimate and then you start to lower the temperature a little bit. Or if you have an athlete that's in an extreme environment, this is how you cater to them and you get their body used to these extreme situations. These are just the protocols I found on the randomized controlled trial systematic reviews on all the data. Kinesio tape. The kinesio tape stimulates the lymphatic. My motocross racers are like, I'm not doing that stupid tape. The stretch in the tape stimulates those little lymph receptors that I was talking about. The bruise is only gone where the lymphatic tape was. So if someone has a clogged area, or if there's something swollen and you know all those nerves are being pushed on and it's painful, do something like this to help them. Find someone that you know that can help them. And I know you guys can do tape. Range DVD. This is one of the best companies in the world. They give a percentage of sales to a veterans healthcare fund, and no one even knows that. They just do that on the side because they're amazing people. But this is the only product on the market I would ever use for CBD. Everything else is garbage. There's no regulation, so everything's just like, everyone's just like shooting in the dark until someone finds out and is like, oh, let's clean that up. This is 100% pure isolate. There is not one other product on the market like this. There's also a patented process where it absorbs better in the body. So again, I find these relationships with these companies that I know are good people because I want those good people on my team. And I want to have more tools in my toolbox to give to other people. Flow tanks, help with stress, parasympathetic function, vibration, we talked about that. I just want to give you guys specifics. The different hertz, it changes. It impacts how it impacts the swelling and the inflammation that shows up in the body. So look at this research. Again, once you start collecting these data points, like you start to remember them, you memorize them, and then you can shoot them from your hip and you're good. Vibroacoustic therapy, the sound that we were talking about. We talked about this earlier. Visualization, how you can think about something and actually train and get better at it through thought. Hyperbaric chamber, gold standard. So I have an affiliation with them. We install them in people's houses. There's portable ones. This is hyperoxygenation. This is gold standard. Nothing compares to this, PEMF, the sauna, nothing. So as far as like, if you have someone that's stressed out, they're stressed out, they're clenching, they have too many things in their life, do one thing. Don't do 80 things. Do the thing that's gonna make the most difference for them. This thing. You guys remember? Otherwise, you're just guessing and you're shooting in the dark and you're doing your person a disservice. You'll be better for it by understanding this information. This is important. If your doctor prescribes you drugs before asking about your sleep, your relationships, the quality of your life, your hydration, your nutrition, you have a drug dealer. Literally, I'm not kidding. It's become a show and it's disgusting. You should not allow profits to manipulate someone's plan of care in the medical field. So that's why I tell you guys, you're the future of healthcare. I'm not even kidding you. If you saw what I saw and what I see on a regular basis, like you don't realize how important you are. And you're kind of minimized on purpose. Because if people know their power, then they tend to accelerate and perform better. And we don't want that. So recognize how powerful you are. And don't be a sheep. Don't just follow because everyone else is following. Oh, they're doing it. I'm like, oh, again, no one knows the hours I put in on these topics. So I'm like, oh, tell me a little bit about that. And they're like, well. And I'm like, oh, where'd you get that from? Oh, I don't know. Okay, well, I do, and that's incorrect. I mean, we could discuss if you have another source where maybe I missed something, but I don't understand how people speak so confidently to something they know nothing about. So don't be a sheep. Understand what you're doing, why you're doing it. Otherwise, don't do it. Less is more, literally. And that's it. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you in lab. Sources.